Welcome to Bayou Reefkeeping's April Tank of the Month. This month we get to go visit Kelsi Guidry down in Thibodaux, Louisiana. Yeah, I know it's really being released in May, but we got a little bit of a late start here. But let's go have fun with Kelsi. Kelsi, I'm really excited to be here. Thank you so much for inviting
Thanks,
into your home.
Definitely am happy to have you here and check out the tank.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are going to be excited to hear this tank interview. So, a little bit of background first. What got you into reef keeping?
Yeah, so my brother had a tank that he was trying to get out of his house, and I always just liked the interest of having an aquarium. I had a couple freshwater tanks in the house when we were young. Nothing saltwater, but just felt like getting into the saltwater hobby. I always found that the saltwater fish were prettier than freshwater fish. That's what he got me into wanting saltwater first. So he had a tank, got it, and set it up at the house. Was going fish only. I had zero knowledge of corals, kind of what they were at all, nothing. So set up saltwater, got a handful of fish, doing some collecting of the fish, and one of the fish we had was a Picasso, a huma huma trig.
Yeah.
And he ate a damsel in front of my wife's face. And she kind of freaked out. And so when she freaked out, I'm like, oh, okay, well, if we can't have that kind and aggressive type fish, I saw that our LFS had some coral, maybe let's look at the coral. And so I went and I was very attracted to a frog spawn that he had in the shop. So Euphyllia coral was the first thing that I saw that like really drew the eyes. I'm like, okay, let me, get this, try it out. Took it home and it's like I can't stop staring at this Euphyllia coral for whatever reason. And then it was like the coral bug bit from that point. So just being given the tank started me off, and as soon as we got that first frog spawn, that was it, got me in.
And how long ago was that? How long have you been doing this?
Let's see, so that was 2018 maybe?
2018?
18,
All right,
19?
so about seven.
Yeah, it's coming on 7
years.
years. That sounds
Okay.
about right, yep.
So was it your brother that was your kind of initial kick, or was there anybody else who kind of helped you get started?
Yeah, so my brother actually did. So I have two younger brothers. My youngest brother is 6 years younger than me. And when I think he was still in high school, he ended up getting a saltwater tank. It was a little Pico type tank that he had in his bedroom. And that was maybe the fascination that I started off, now that I think about it. So he had his little tank in there. I liked to see he had coral and clams and shrimp and all this type stuff. So that was really neat. This is the same brother that I ended up with his bigger tank later down the road. So I guess if I had to say any inspiration from someone, it would have been him. And that would have been, 15 plus years ago that he had that.
Anybody that you would say is a big influence along the way with the reef tanking?
Yes, I'd have to say the biggest influence of just reef keeping and knowledge is WWC. So I'm sorry, not WWC. They have been good with their videos. Backtrack a little bit more. WWC's been helpful with knowledge type stuff, going over different tank tours. It's always good to hear perspective of everybody's different tanks, how they run things. That's very knowledgeable. But it's Bulk Reef Supply, BRS.
Yeah.
Back in the day, Bulk Reef Supply was very, very good with their videos. I don't watch it as much as I used to, but it was back when they started their 52 Weeks of Reefing series. So I started watching when they were in the middle of the 52 weeks of reefing. So they broke down everything, on a weekly basis. So that just became a broken down series to acquire all the knowledge of all these different things. So if anybody's starting up in the hobby, I always refer them to that. I'm like, okay, you don't need everything in this video or the series of video because it's too much, it's a lot. But just get a good grasp of everything in the hobby first, and then shift into, okay, let me take all this knowledge in. My input to someone else is find a tank that you like and then just try to emulate them. So get the broad bit of knowledge, find someone who you like their tank, and then follow kind of what they have along with some of the knowledge that you learn.
Awesome. The tank that you are standing in front of, tell us a little bit about it, and it's brand new or relatively brand new.
Essentially brand new. So unfortunately, we got flooded by Hurricane Francine that came through, it's a little over 6 months ago. So I had a 210 aquarium in this spot. Water came in the house, damaged the floor. It wasn't anything too horrible, but my wife and I always had a thing, hey, I want a bigger tank in this spot. And she was like, only if we could get our floors redone at some point you could get a bigger tank. And then unfortunately, it was a bad situation that forced us to be able to get it. So Hurricane Francine passed from this video about six and a half months ago. And I always wanted to go slightly bigger. The space here allowed for slightly bigger. So this aquarium's 2 foot longer. So this is an 8 foot, 24 inches by 30 inches deep. So it's about 310. And so I picked it up used from a guy that was getting out the hobby. I guess I'm a cheaper kind of reef, reef hobbyist. I like to buy equipment that's in good condition, but used, get the discounts. You could have a phenomenal tank and start off with something that's, used. So I ran my previous tank for about 4 years. Had coral acropora growing out the top. WWC that I mentioned earlier, they came do an interview on me, so that's out on the web. And then from there, had the flood, changed everything out. This tank started basically the start of this year. So I think I set it up in like December 30th. So essentially January 1st was the starting of this tank. And so unfortunately, from the old tank to this one, I lost a lot of my SPS. It just sat in the garage in a tub running in a EO manner, I guess you could say, for far too long. It was like 2-3 months, and I lost most of my SPS. Most of my LPS, you can see it's all nice and fluffy. They're relatively large colonies. I've been having those since I set up here in this house about 5-ish years ago. And then restarting with the sticks now, starting as of January.
That's great, especially with the success story of not giving up when sometimes it looks pretty bad. Yeah,
people get hit, especially coral loss, fish loss, doing all these stuff, and they're just like, well, I'm out the hobby, but it's ingrained. I don't even know what would kick me out of the hobby. I have no idea.
That's awesome. The thing that everybody's always interested in is equipment. So you talked about the tank itself. Do you have any technology that you're using for automation at this point in time? Yeah,
so I do run the Neptune Apex. That gives me my, I have a salinity probe. The probe went out, and I think it dried out maybe in the transfer of the aquarium. Didn't set up the salinity probe. Runs pH. I'm a big believer in pH, elevated pH. So pay attention to that. And then, of course, it reads my temperature. And then one of the things that I like about it is that you can run just different programs per se. So if the temperature gets too high, let's say, it could kick off some lights or a UV filter. If your skimmer's overflowing, something kicks off, or your return pump, you could turn your return pump. If your return pump goes off, my skimmer goes off. So there's certain things you could set. If this, then that. Definitely like the Apex for those instances. So that's my main technology that I'm running. I'm not really a gearhead with a lot of stuff. Very basic. I am running the controller, Apex, then just filter socks, skimmer, and basic media reactors. That's it.
So let's talk about a little bit more of the equipment. So I can see the blue glow behind you. You've got lighting. What's the lighting? Is this Kelsi homegrown lighting?
So I'm a very entrepreneurial person at heart. I refer to myself as an ADD entrepreneur, like, trying all kind of different things. So when I was looking for lighting in the old tank, so I had what people call the Chinese black boxes. So that was the Viper Spectras that I had on the old tank. And so I was looking at something that would be broader, light. So I came across bars. It was mostly Reef Bright and Orphic bars. Of course, like I said earlier, I don't like the price of a lot of equipment, new equipment. Of course, you could find used every once in a while. But while looking into the lights, I'm like, what would it take to create something with a light spectrum that I like, that I could get at a decent price? So I ended up finding the same manufacturers that used to make Orphic bars. They could make custom lights. You could customize the light spectrum. You could customize the lenses. You could customize a couple things. So I did a lot of research on light color and basically developed 2 light color bars, one blue violet, one blue white. And those 2 light color bars together is like the perfect light spectrum. So I was like, well, let me test it out on the aquarium. I grew sticks out of the water. Now I did have Viper Spectras still on both sides. I was like, to absolutely put this to rest that the bars on their own could be good enough, this setup is only bars. Nothing else, no other kind of supplements, just this perfect light spectrum. It's mostly blue violet, 1 strip of blue white, and
so
that's it for
how
light.
many of the strips do you have up there?
Yeah, so let's see. I think it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 11.
11?
11 strips.
10 are
Yes.
the blue violet and 1's the blue white?
So it's, yes. Yes,
and
that's
how
correct.
long are each of the?
Yeah, so the bars only go up to 48 inches. Once you went over 48 inches, shipping became a little bit too expensive. So I cut it out. So it's 24, 36, 48. So in the back of this tank, I do have 36s because it doesn't go over the overflow. So it's 2 36 side by side, missing the overflow in the middle, and then it's 48s across in a strip, and the blue white in the middle to give it the most of the blue light. As far as white, I'm a believer in. There's a debate, is it blue light or white light that really does? So most of the debate is, well, do corals do well in blue light? Like 100% they do well in blue light. You could completely run blue light. Now, it's debatable growth, is white more? So I'm not trying to grow it fast. I don't care how fast the corals grow. I pay attention more to color. So I'm more blue violet than white.
That's very, very, very interesting.
Yeah.
And always, one of the things I will say, just my little thing here is every time I talk to people, I always think, what am I doing in my tank that I might be changing? Which is why I love doing these videos for one reason. What about PAR readings? Do you know what the PAR is in the new tank?
Yeah, so I do. When I got into the whole light thing, I ended up getting a PAR meter. My lights used to, the amount of bars per square foot, I guess you could say, I had more on the last tank. So I would run 3/4 of the tank, I would run about 550. This current setup, I decided to go a little bit less. So top rock, I'm about at 350, 370-ish.
Okay.
Now again, that's at the rock. So as the corals go, they'll end up being in more light. Now, even with that, in the sand bed, this coral at the bottom, for example, it's 250 in the sand bed. So I don't really have the space to hide low light corals. So some of the arches you could stick, like I have this Ghani here in the middle. He's kind of sulking lately. He had something on him I scraped off and I just put him here. But he's in the shadow of the arch to get out the light. So that's how some of the corals are based. But yeah, the bars put out a lot of PAR, but it's the blanket of light that's the best with the bar. The spread is excellent important from the bars, and then they just have great penetration down to the bottom, and you'll have high PAR on the bottom.
Awesome.
Yeah.
The filtration, what are you running underneath the tank as your kind of filtration system?
Yeah, so I'm a filter socks person. So filter socks, I'll change them once every 4 to 7 days-ish. I try not to go too long. If it's trickling out, I'm like, okay, no, that was too long. A lot of people don't know or realize you can control your phosphate level by the frequency of your sock changes. So if you find that your phosphate is high, so if I'm noticing it's getting high, and we could go over the numbers later, I'll change my socks more frequently. If they're too low, you could almost just forget about your socks or just not run socks and then let your phosphate
Build up.
So socks, after the socks, then I have a skimmer. Don't really know the size of the skimmer. It's rated for this size.
Do you know the brand?
Yeah, it's a
Reef
Reef Octopus
Okay.
running a Varios 4, I believe. So it was a used piece of equipment that I got, runs amazingly well. One thing that I did on this tank that I did not do in the other tank is I'm pulling air from the attic. So we renovated the house. I ran a tube up through the ceiling, up through the back wall into the attic. So it's pulling fresh air instead of the CO2 air in the house. So after that, I'm running a UV sterilizer.
What size for the tank?
It's a 40
watt?
40 watt, yes.
And are you running it 24/7?
Yeah, just always on.
Always on.
Always
24/7
on.
you're
Yep.
running
Yep.
you're running it.
I've tried different things, on for a period, off a period, not running it, and I didn't really find any difference. A lot of talk now is about bacteria in the water column, and then, okay, the UV is just killing all bacteria that the corals could consume. But since I run it all the time, and I've run it constantly before, I don't really see a difference in the response of the coral. Corals, polyps are all out and open and happy. They're growing. They're consuming something else in the water. Now, I'm a broadcast feeder, so there's food in the water column. So that's maybe where they're doing it. So I guess it depends on how you run. So UV 24/7.
And how much flow are you putting through that?
Yeah, so I'm a wing it.
You're a wing it kind of.
Unfortunately,
You don't
maybe
know.
to say a wing it kind of person. So, yeah, my judge is my outflow is here, and I just kind of feel, is it coming out a little or a lot? So
Do you have just one return pump, or do you have multiple?
So I do have 2 return pumps. They're both feeding basically a manifold. One of them is feeding the UV sterilizer and just coming basically back up to the tank. So I run it on the slower end, or what I feel like is on the slower end, to be more on the pest side of things. So the flow coming out of it feels slow to me. So I don't know if I would recommend that, but as I said before, I'm too cheap to buy the flow meters and all this stuff. It's like the old school days. I know I should have a UV. I'm just judging based off of that, and that's it.
So let's try. I'm going to try to narrow it down the way I think of it. What size is the return pump that you're using?
Yeah, so I have two J-Bow return pumps, the smart pumps. One is a 6500, one's a 8500.
Okay.
And I run them, they're probably both around 80%.
Okay.
So they're not both kicking. And I think it's a 6500, if I remember right, that's feeding the UV. So again, it's split between the UV and coming, I think it maybe runs a small reactor, but it's very little flow going through it. And then the rest is just coming into the tank.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else that we missed in the sump? So you talked about skimmer, you talked filter socks.
Not equipment, but I do run, okay, so we missed media reactors. So I do have media reactors. So I run Brightwell's, I think it's called Purit, if I remember right. This is a new product that I'm trying out. So it's a carbon/GFO kind of media that's pulling out, things out the water that we don't want. So that's new that I'm running in a reactor. And then I have another reactor if I want to do carbon/GFO kind of on its own, but I haven't been running that. So
okay.
I have two spouts to run those things, but just not running them.
Not running.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else from a filtration perspective that you're doing? Any kind
Yeah,
of like filter floss, anything like that?
Yeah, so the only thing that I could say that's in that realm is I am running Miracle Mud in the sump. So for those that don't know Miracle Mud or familiar, so it is an older school type product. Essentially, it's sandy mud kind of material it's very dense. So they say if you only have like, let's say a thin layer of it is creating a denitrifying situation inside of it with a lot of surface area. And then whatever it's made out of, it's slowly releasing minerals back into the water column. So I hadn't run Miracle Mud before. My LFS was running it. He runs it on a lot of his tanks, and he just had some. So I just picked it up, tried it out. So that's in the tank. Is it doing anything great? I'm not really sure. I haven't run a ICP test yet on this system to see what's coming out. But yeah, thinking through the steps. So we could look at this something all later, but filter socks, skimmer. I have an empty chamber. I'm thinking I'm going to put some frags down there with a light, the Miracle Mud, and I have a couple media blocks for more surface area. Yeah.
We talked about the return pump. What do you have for additional flow in the tanks?
Yeah, so I'm a big believer in gyros, so the gyro pumps. So it's two opposing J-bow gyro pumps. I think is the biggest ones is the 180s.
And do you know how much they are flowing? And it's okay, we can look it up.
Yeah, I don't remember the gallons per hour is the biggest one that they have for this tank. I figured I'd just go with the biggest ones. They're both on a random pulse mode. I did it on the wave mode, but just the constant like with the water was I don't know, maybe irritating here in the living room. So the random sound I find is a little bit better. So again, they're both, I think they run 90, let's just say 94% each. They're opposing, random flow, so it's just creating flow all over the place. I have another one back here. It was running as well, and I did run it for the reason of the acros and the extra, just the extra flow for the acros. But I had a flood incident when I set this up. I guess I didn't check sump or where some of my outlets are coming out. We lost power. This is way after the hurricane and everything. Lost power, and it created a back siphon and overflowed the sump. Now I do have a shower pan liner at the bottom of my sump. So it caught all the water, but I didn't finish all my wire management yet in the bottom, and I lost one of my my power bricks for it. So once I get the power brick back, I'm gonna add it back, and I'll have 3 gyros running.
And is it another J-bow as well?
It's a J-bow, and I think this is it's a 150. So it's 2 180s and 150. I don't find I need it. So, I mean, if you look at the torches, they have really good flow movement. Yeah, if it was all majority SPS, I would maybe put 2 more gyros in here. But I got to be mindful of the torches. I don't want to rip tissue.
Got it. Makes a lot of sense. I think we've talked about everything equipment-wise that I usually think of, but let's move a little bit to some of the maintenance stuff and testing. Okay. So do you do water changes today on the tank? Yeah,
so I am a water change person. Yep. So back to the BRS thing and where I initially learned, do water changes increase your chances of success? And I think that's a yes. So if it increases chances of success, then just do it. Don't go back and forth of doing it or trying it. So I did try the no water change method. So of course they have moonshiners with the individual elements, and they say if you go hardcore moonshiners and you're paying attention to all that, as long as your nutrients, there's technically no reason to do the water changers. I tried that method. Maybe I didn't give enough attention, or I didn't run it strict enough, that I just found corals looked happier and healthier when I do water changes. So I'm a water change person. percentage is a pretty low percent. So it's only maybe like 6 or 7% because I just change out what's in one of the chambers of the sump, but I do it every weekend. So it's a constant, let's just say 5% on a weekly basis. That's my normal water change schedule.
And what type of salt are you using for maintenance here?
So my latest batch of salt is the Aquaforest reef salt. So I'll jump back and forth between Aquaforest and Fauna Marine's,
yeah,
their salt. So I'm a believer of pick a salt. Most of them are all good, solid salts. I'm not a salt debater kind of person. You pick one that you like their parameters. So middle of the road parameters, that's what I follow. So that's a middle of the parameter salt. So, and it's the cheapest of the salts. It mixes good and clear, no residue in the container. So that's what I stick with mostly.
Oh, that's good. Testing and parameters. So let's talk first about testing. What are you doing on a regular test basis?
Yeah, so I test weekly. So I test alkalinity, calcium, magnesium, phosphate, nitrate, and potassium. So 6 elements that I test basically every week. It was a good while that potassium test kits from Salifert were hard to come by, so I would skip that for a while. But I think, so if you look at major elements, calcium, magnesium, when you go down in major elements, like strontium and potassium are like right below calcium as far as major elements. So I've always just followed, I had a potassium test kit. It's a major element, so I've always paid pretty close attention to it, yeah.
And to make up, what are you dosing for that? What are you using to make up consumption from the corals?
Yeah, so backtrack just a little bit. So I do the test kits and I try to get on the schedule, I guess, every 3-ish months to do an ICP test and just see what everything is in general.
Yeah.
So I am a 2-part / 3-part doser, no calcium reactor. So I guess back to the equipment.
Yeah.
Back to the equipment thing. So I have an automatic, I have a J-Bow doser on here. So it's automatically dosing alkalinity and calcium at the moment. My consumption is pretty low in magnesium, so that's not set up yet. Back to equipment, or still in it. So I have auto top off as a piece of equipment. As far as that piece of equipment, the top off water has calc in it. Specifically, Brightwell's calc. Brightwell's calc has calcium, magnesium, strontium, hydroxides in their calc. So that's adding strontium and magnesium on top of calcium inside the calc. So that doses, in my Apex, I have a parameter, I think is between like 8.15 and 8.3. If it's below 8.13, a pump kicks on to dose the calc. If it gets over 1.3, that auto dose is off. Outside of that, if there's more evaporation, then the auto top off's just going to add more of the top off water with the calc in it.
With the calc in it. So
Yeah,
you're not doing
that's
any
right.
direct RO water, just the calc water is all.
That's right. Yeah.
your-
No pure RO is in here. When I put RO in my auto top off, I do 2 tablespoons of calc. I mix it up with about 20. I have a 30-gallon ATO in here, so I do about 20 gallons of RO with 2 scoops. It's a lot lower than the max saturation.
Yeah.
So it's just enough to have something that, in case something happens with my doser, alkalinity is still going into the tank. So calc, 3-part on a regular basis, calcium, alkalinity, magnesium. Then I'm paying attention to, like I said, I test nitrate and phosphate. If my nitrate and phosphate are low, for nitrate, I got potassium nitrate. I buy a potassium nitrate powder, mix it with RO water, and I'll dose potassium nitrate. So that's twofold, raising potassium and the nitrate. If phosphate's low, I have Moonshiner's phosphorus, and I'll dose phosphorus to get that up. And then we could go over specific parameters, but yeah, that's the basis of do water changes, test weekly, and then I try to stick within a certain parameters. And again, we could talk about those parameters.
So let's just kind of close off on a couple of the pieces of equipment. You mentioned the type of doser that you're using. What's the auto top-off brand that you have?
It's a Tunzi.
It's a Tunzi?
Yeah, it's the newest of the Tunzis.
Okay, yeah, that's the same one I have. I really like
Yeah,
it. I'm
it's
very
nice.
happy with it.
Yep.
So we talked about testing, you talked about ICP. Let's move to the parameters.
Yep.
So salinity, what are you running your salinity at the tank?
So I shoot for 1.026. If it's 2.5, then that's 5. Somewhere between those numbers is
what you're shooting for.
Yep.
Temp?
I shoot for about 77 and a half. I'll swing here. Since I put the UV, it climbs a little bit higher than what my heaters kick on at. So it'll get 79. It'll touch 80 every once in a while, but I'll try to keep it to the 78. I don't run a chiller, so if it just gets a little bit more warm in here because of the lights, because of the UV, and that's what it is. If it were to go over 81, UV lights could come off to lower that temperature. Yeah.
That makes complete sense. What about, so we talked about the testing, what are you running those various parameters? So the main three, calcium, magnesium.
Yeah, so alkalinity, I shoot for about 8 to 8.2. But I prefer to be slightly on the lower side. If I'm gonna have error to the low side. So the last couple times I tested, so again, I'm just trying to dial in things. So I know I have calc going in for alkalinity. I'm running the doser going in, and I've only been about 7 to 7.5. So I'm like inching to slightly go into the 8 zone. 8's the target. Calcium, 420 to 440 in that range. Magnesium, 1350 to 1400. Potassium, I shoot for 400. That's the recommendation of the test kit. So I shoot to 400 to 410. And then for ICPs, I just try, if whatever comes in the ICP. Nitrate and phosphate. I'm 100 to 1 believer of the ratio nitrate to phosphate. There's plenty of examples of people running low nutrients and high nutrients with successful tanks. I think it's something we as a hobby don't really know, but I'm just a believer in that ratio. So personally, I'm at 0.05 to 0.08 in phosphate, and then I'm shooting for 5 to 10 nitrate. So that's the range.
And that's pretty low compared to what I hear a lot of people running.
Over the last couple years, people's been going to the higher side, and again, seem to have success. My acro colors were the best, top notch, on the last setup when my nitrates were the lowest.
Yeah.
So barely detectable on the test kit to 0.25, 0.5 in nitrate. I had the best acro colors, but my euphilia suffered. So I'm riding this mid-ground with a mixed reef. So it's still slightly low for the acros in their color. If it was mostly LPS, I would run higher numbers.
You'd run higher.
Yeah.
What are you using just equipment-wise for your testing, or what's the brand?
Yeah, so I use Hanna for alkalinity, phosphate, and then I use Salifert for all the rest of the testing.
So you Salifert for nitrates as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. I know a lot of people have trouble with the color, but some people don't know if you actually, so instead of the look down method, if you pull it up and look through it sideways, it's a 10x. So you don't know, okay, well, is it between 5 and 10 or 2.5 and 5? If you pull it up sideways and you look at the higher ranges, you could usually tell easier looking through it. It 10x is the number looking through it sideways.
That's interesting. That's not something that I knew, and I had the darndest time. My eyes are not great with color
it's hard.
definition.
I never got the nitrate test. I hear people just saying, oh, it's a little bit more of a complex thing.
Yeah.
And to me, the nitrate salifert is super, super easy. So I just stick to that.
Okay. All right. When you do ICP tests, who are you using for your ICP tests?
I use ATIs.
ATIs?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I always thought they were good. I use ATI. I think it's Oceamo.
Yeah.
Through Moonshiners. I've
Yep.
used them once. They were a little on the expensive side. So I just went back to ATI. Find they pretty similar. Although so when I run the ICP test, it's giving back ATI results, but I do take the ATI and I put it in the Moonshiners spreadsheet, and then I do the correction still with Moonshiners elements.
So you are ordering some of the supplemental elements from Andre, I think is his name,
Yes,
out
from
of Houston.
Moonshiners.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. That's what I have mostly for equipment. Let's talk about, I think, one of my favorite things. So I know a lot of people are equipment people, but I'm a livestock person.
Yeah.
So tell us, you're obviously running, let's start with the fish. What do you have in there for fish? I noticed one of my favorite fishes that you used to have is no longer there.
Yeah, so out of the two types of livestock, fish and coral, I'm more of a coral person than a fish person. So that's number one. So we had an unfortunate event. I'm not sure if we call it velvet, but we got some sort of nasty bug in here and my fish just started.
Wow.
Now this was after the flood. So flood happened, the 210 was broken down. It went in a 300-gallon tub in the garage. All my fish were fine. I did acquire 2 more fish. Everybody came back in the new tank, it was a month and a half later, after mixing 2 new fish, that whatever it was. So I'm not positive that it came from the new fish, but I also acquired corals before the incident happened too. So knowing certain pests could be on coral plugs or whatever the case may be. So I'm not positive where it came from. Could have been the fish, could have been the coral, but we lost 17 fish in a thing. So we're very slim on fish, unfortunately. So the first 2 fish to show symptoms were, I have 2 sailfins in here. I have a DiGiardini and a regular sailfin. Those showed symptoms first. So I'm like, oh, something's up. One showed black spots, the other showed white spots. So wasn't sure. And then all of us, next day, and for a week or 2, all the fish started dying. Those are the fish that survived. So kept 2 sailfins. There's a lavender tang that survived. A chromis survived. I don't think you could kill a chromis. So he
they
survived.
are pretty hard.
And then I had 3 6-line wrasses. It came from multiple tanks. 3 6-line. Unfortunately, 2 of them jumped out since then. I'm left with 1 sailfin. So 1 6-line. So I'm only down to 5 fish in here. So as far as dosing, at the moment, I have to pay a lot of attention to nitrate and phosphate. So back to dosing a little bit. If I am running low on the nitrate, potassium nitrate, but if I'm running decently low, I'll dose ammonia in there to just have ammonia in the system, bring it through the nitrogen process. So my thought process being that not all of the fish died, it's almost like a fallow period. I'm going to go through 70 days, watch the fish. If there's no ill fish, UV is going to run for the 70 days. If everything's fine, I'm going to restart to introduce fish again at the bottom of the chain with some damsels or something like that and work back up. So unfortunately, yes, maybe the fish, so lost a lot of fish. That was like pet fish.
That big powder blue, which was
so when WWC came do their interview, they were like, oh my God, this is like the best looking powder blue that I've seen in a home aquarium, So There is a silver lining to it. I definitely wouldn't want to lose a fish on purpose, but she became a coral picker. She would bite at the tips of my torch. I have a really nice meat coral. The polyps were never out. She thought it was a trampoline. She would like bounce on it all the time. So she was a little bit of a pain. I was very borderline of getting rid of her. I think she was getting bored in the size tank. So she would just mess with other fish. She would mess with coral. But my wife wants one again. So we're gonna start with a small one. Hope that they don't mess. We're gonna have to do maybe all tangs at once, unfortunately. So spread the aggression amongst the tangs. But powder blue is gonna be back in there. Yeah. So that's the fish side of it.
What about inverts? I don't see many snails or things running around your tank.
I have an okay amount of them. They do a good job hiding. I have huge turbo snails. I'm talking about like turbo snails this big. If you look in this corner, they gather up, for whatever reason, they gather up in the same spot and they just hang out and they become lazy. They don't venture off. So every once in a while, you'll see them out on the rocks, but so I got a handful of these giant ones. I probably got 4 or 5 of them that big that I've been having for 4 or 5 years. I like turbo snails. So there's a decent amount of turbo snails in here. 5, 6, 7 emerald crabs that I have in here. Just a handful of blue leg crabs. I have some Nacerius snails in the sand bed.
Yeah.
I had a cleaner shrimp. So I have 2 starfish, 2, I don't remember what species they are.
Linkia, sand sifters.
No, it's like the brittle type.
Okay, yeah.
Large.
Brittle stars.
Yeah. So I have a dark gray color and I have a red color. So right before I changed out the tank, or it was right after I changed out the tank, my starfish just straight up attacked and ate my cleanup shrimp. Like in front.
Wow.
It was me and a friend here. We were looking at things. He ambushed the shrimp. I've never seen them do anything
I've never
like
seen that before.
From a starfish. But he caught the shrimp and he ate them. So I got to replace some. I need some more shrimp. But that I have the conchs in the sand bed. I have maybe 5, 6 conchs. So they're cleaning the sand bed as well. I think that's about it as far as cleanup crew. Yeah,
okay.
Inverts.
All right, so we talked about fish, we talked about inverts, probably everybody's favorite part, and you've already referenced it, corals. So tell us about the corals that you're keeping in your tank.
Yeah, so I probably wouldn't have this. I don't know if I would have the setup if I wouldn't have corals. So, going through the flood, going through everything, is the corals that drew me back to being in here. So yes, definitely corals are the favorite. So as I said before, I started off with Euphyllia. A frog spawn was the first thing that attracted me. Went heavy, Euphyllia. Got into the torches. I've had my fair share of issues with the torches. Torches are infamous for catching bacterial infections. A lot of people say it's beginner friendly. I'm not sure. If you're still in the position of trying different methods in your aquarium, low nutrients, high nutrients, dosing this bacteria running, that's not the best time to have torches when you're switching back from this. Once you have a stable method, then torches should do really well if you're just keeping line. So as you can tell, my Euphyllia island is rocking.
Yes.
So we had most of these coral from the previous tank. They did fine out in the garage, taking these big temperature swings, horrible conditions, filtration not the best, all this stuff, multiple months in the garage. I think I might have lost 1, 2 heads of Euphyllia that whole time. Of course, all the zoas live. I don't think I lost anything like blastos or akins, I didn't lose anything like that. Although I love SPS, I love the watching the colors come out of the SPS. You really get the SPS bug and it's in. it's like, I don't know if I could ever give up the torch corals. So really like them, but as you can see, it's only about a third or a fourth of the tank. Most of the rest is SPS. So this aquascape, I separated it where right side of the tank is mostly LPS, left side of the tank SPS, and again, just recently started collecting again the SPS. A couple pieces made it in the, again, bad situation that we had out there. Some pieces are very hardy, they made it, but unfortunately lost most. And then now it's fun again. I could collect, I could collect more SPS and sticks. But yeah, it's like choosing between a favorite child, I guess you could say, between torches and acros of different kind. I couldn't.
What? So I'm going to make you choose a little bit.
Yeah.
Of your torches, which one is your favorite?
Yeah, so I do have a favorite of those. So in the torch garden, I do have various Holy Grail types. The original Holy Grail, what I consider the original Holy Grail, because it was the first that I've seen on the scene, was the ASD Holy Grail. Not too far after that, they might have had it around the same time, but you saw it on the scene a little bit later. TSA's Holy Grail.
Yeah.
So I have ASD Holy Grail, TSA Holy Grail. But I also have and acquired a master torch. I think the master torch is actually my favorite. So that would be the brighter of the gold green. That's my favorite. Yep.
I can say that was one of the first frags I got from you,
Yeah.
and it went from 2 heads, and now it's like softball size.
It's a fast grower. It's one of the faster growers.
And it's a great looking
Yeah,
coral.
beautiful
Really,
coral.
very, very happy with that.
Yeah.
What about on the SPS side? What
Yeah.
are some of the ones? They're mostly frags or a little bit bigger now. What are you really looking forward to see growing there?
Yeah, so I'm attracted to the flow, polypy flow. So I like millies and I like tenuous, which I don't think they call it tenuous anymore, but the typical tenuous that we still call in the hobby. So just general species, those two. I've been being attracted lately to no names. So every once in a while, so there's vendors out there, they're getting maricultured pieces in. Maricultured is iffy, right? Like, okay, it might do well in your tank, might not do well, but I feel where I am in the hobby, I don't mind losing pieces for the trade-off of, oh, I might score this
Very
rare,
unique,
unique piece that grows out to be something that's not seen all over the hobby. Now there's a couple core older type pieces that we recently collected. So Orange Passion is one of them. I had a giant colony
Wow.
of Orange Passion. I used to cut chunks, this big, and sell them as frags. That was the hardiest in terms of color. So if parameters got off, some of the acros, they would lose their color, gain their color. I find Orange Passion, for whatever reason, is like the most stable of the colors in the acros. So it's not a good canary coral for something's going off, but it was one of my favorite color combo, that orangey blue type color.
Yeah.
Polyps usually all out, it's a tenuous type. So that's one of my favorites. Still have to try to collect Walt Disney and Homewrecker. We had those before. It seems like a lot of people struggle with the Homewrecker frag. Even though it's been in the hobby a long time, you go ask, hey, you have it? Oh no, I just lost mine. That's like the typical thing that I hear. So if someone has it, it's usually, you don't see too many colonies, unfortunately. Yeah. So it's almost like the new, like, if you could have it and you could grow it out big, it's still very unique in the hobby. But besides that, I've collected a handful of just random no-name Euphilia and not Euphilia.
SPS.
SPS, yeah. Millies in the tenuous with the no names, and it's just kind of, whatever. I'm going for color combos and the looks and not really names.
Where are you getting most of your corals from?
Yeah, so unfortunately, not a lot of shops in Louisiana carry the SPS. We have a handful. They have some. I've bought some from Brian in Mandeville. He's had a couple. So there's a couple of his, and maybe one of my most, my favorite as of now. So it's a tenuous type. So it's the one bottom middle here. He calls it the Yum Yum Unicorn. This is so this was a mariculture that he took in. He gave it a name, but it's right there local. I might be one of just a handful that has this particular piece so far. Really like this piece, so that's going to be really nice once that grows out. Then Chad at Reef Consortium, he brought in some mariculture pieces. Got a couple clippings in here. It's some mealies, and I try my best to buy most of my coral from other reef keepers. So you said or mentioned you might visit Mo. Got a handful from Mo. And I gave out some insurance pieces from my tank previously. So Chris Abear gave me some insurance pieces back after I lost a good bit of mine. But I'm more in the camp of get as many pieces from local hobbyists as possible. Now, I've done a couple, like, I'm not an auction type person. I don't like the auctions much, but I've gotten a couple from auctions because the SPS went for 15 bucks. It's kind of hard to pass up stuff like that when I'm just trying to fill up, fill up 300 gallons worth of tank. Yeah.
Well, you want to get it so you're consuming a lot more alkalinity than you are today.
Right.
Are you doing anything for the corals before you put them in the tank?
Not anything too crazy. So I'm a believer in dipping.
Yeah.
So if the coral is coming from somewhere that I'm not completely sure of how everything was run, I'm very strict with the dipping. I'll dip everything. If you're getting it from local hobbyists, if it's on a frag plug, it's overgrown, it's not in a fragile type state, that coral should have no problem going through a dipping process.
Yeah.
However, if someone fresh cuts a frag, I might be playing with fire, but if I'm at their house and I don't see signs of pests and they fresh cut a frag, I just put them straight in the tank. So it sort of depends between dipping and not dipping. If you cannot see where it comes from online, dipping is recommended. So I am a recommender of dipping, the dipping process. Now, temperature acclimation, coral self-acclimate temperature. You don't need to temperature acclimate them unless it's a very big temperature difference.
Yeah.
If it's 40 degrees outside, the coral came overnight and it's sitting in a bag, pull it out, it feels cold, okay, temperature acclimate that. But if it's going from, again, Mandeville to here, it's a couple hour drive, it came from a 78 temperature tank, it dropped a couple, I'm not temperature acclimated. I'm taking it straight out of the bag, putting it straight on the frag rack.
And what are you using for, when you do dip, what are you using for dipping?
So Coral RX is my preferred dip. It covers bacteria type issues, flatworms, all those like pests. But I also just like iodine. I'm a fan of iodine dipping too.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else you think we missed on the livestock thing?
No. So my kids are pretty, and if I don't have it, but there's a ladder here on the side. So my kids usually come pull the ladder up to the tank. And so I have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. And my 4-year-old has a favorite coral. So I'll point out his favorite coral because it is one of my favorites as well. So that would be the meat coral at the edge of the tank. So the oranges and the blues and the purples, and it's almost like a rainbow color. It's one of my favorite, and that's his coral.
Favorite, yeah.
It's really neat getting the kids involved, getting them check it out. He knows, some of the stuff in here. They point out things. It's cool to get the kids involved at their young age and learning all the intricacies. When I test stuff, I tell them what I'm doing. They don't know exactly, the steps that I'm going through. But I try to get them as involved as possible, because you do hear and see people in videos, oh, where did you get your inspiration from?
Yeah.
And a lot of them get, oh, well, I had a tank in my house since I was a child. That's things that they're going to remember for a long time. So, that's one thing that I like about this hobby, getting them involved. So yeah, that's one thing. I'm a big proponent of cleanliness. I find if you just pay attention to just keeping things clean and neat, and pay attention to everything. Again, back to the BRS thing. The more things you're paying attention to and keeping in line, you just have a higher chance of success.
Yeah.
Right? So can you get away with not doing water changes? Can you get away with not testing? Yeah, people do it all the time. But you have an increased chance of success with cleanliness and stable parameters. You don't know if a hose is pinched. And there's been times that I've thought Apex is running well, things are going, and I find out a tube came off and my alkalinity is not dosing. I caught it the next weekend, 3 or 4 days. If I'm not testing for a month, or I don't really test, then all of a sudden you lose everything.
Yeah.
So the minute that it takes to run a nitrate test, the 2 minutes it takes to run a phosphate test,
it's worth it.
It's worth it.
It's way worth it.
Cleanliness and paying attention to things and doing them consistent is the best way to go.
So one of the things I always like to talk about is, while we see a lot of times when I'm here, I'm talking about the great successes that people have had with the tank, but everybody who's been in the hobby has had some level of challenge somewhere along the way.
Yeah.
What was one of the biggest challenges you had, and what did you do to overcome it ultimately?
Yeah, so biggest challenge might have been self-inflicted. So, of course, started doing the SPS. Have great colors. This is before, right? And starting to get and dive into the whole moonshiners thing, individual elements. You could overdose some elements and they have a very bad effect on SPS. And if you do it, it's like it poisons the skeleton. And it's like you can't bounce back from it. And the coral itself is just weak and you can't do anything about it. So the challenge was just, it was, again, something self-inflicted. I must have misdosed something. Corals start to look bad. And then it's, again, they're poisoned. It's like, I can't shake it. Then you need to go back to, okay, what was working?
Right.
Just water changes, right? You just go through this and then the corals just, they take a long time. If you mess them up, it takes a long time
for them to come back. Yes.
That, and then of course, just major changes. So the moving of the aquarium, just big physical shocks to the whole system. Power outages, you got to be super prepared for power outages, for multiple weeks at a time. But yeah, the overcoming, it's all a mental thing. Just know it works, know it has the best chances of success, and just go either back to that or just reset to those things. And if you enjoy the hobby, even if you lose thousands of dollars worth of coral, if you enjoyed it, just reset. Yes, it hurts. It might hurt because you lost money, you lost pets. But if you enjoy it, just restart, take a deep breath, you enjoy it, just kick back off, slowly collect again. Friends are going to provide back to you, and just, get back going.
Awesome. Well, you hit it on what my next question was by talking about if you're out of power. So what is your solution? Here in Louisiana, we have hurricanes, we have all kinds of fun stuff here.
Yeah.
What do you do for power outage here?
Yeah, so I would like a whole home generator situation. but I have friends that have a whole home generator. When the storm came, didn't kick on, all this different stuff. Number one is hurricanes came through here, family could leave, I'm staying. I don't care how big the hurricane is, what's going on, I'm staying with the tank and doing anything I can to make sure that stuff is running as best as possible. So that's number one. Number two is you need a generator to be able to run your basics. So you need the flow going through, some sort of flow. It's also good to have RODI water in your freezer in case it's, let's just say a couple days, 90 degrees, 100 degrees outside. If you have frozen RODI water, that can help you get temperature
down. Yeah.
down. And then I have a window unit to run in the window in case things aren't going well. Have the generator, have a window unit at least to run AC in the living room. So the two hurricanes that we had, the first one being Ida, we lost power for 2 weeks, and just having, I used the RODI frozen for a while. That only lasted so long. And I had the AC unit 5-ish days in, started running that. And of course I needed the generator to run all this, so I had it from the beginning. So if you live in Louisiana, north or south, it doesn't matter, you should at least have a basic generator to run the aquarium in case something happens. The battery backups, they're good. Have had one when I swapped tanks. I didn't set it back up. I should. This is good. I should probably get that set back up. But if the power goes out for multiple hours, I would just go to the generator. I would set that up. If I am not here, that's the potential issue. If I'm not here, power goes out, then I should have the battery backup. Besides that, you should also have bubblers on hand. If the power goes out, it's typically only 30 minutes, an hour, or whatever. If it's getting to half an hour, I just put bubblers in the tank just to create some flow and oxygen in the tank. And that's it. So backtracking, going through all of it, bubblers, RODI, frozen in your freezer, generator, and a portable AC unit, if you could get one.
What's the best advice you've ever gotten about reef tanking?
I don't know if I don't know where it came from, but best advice is that I've heard is that the corals are super hardy. They're way more hardy than we give them
credit for,
right? So if we just do basic things, basic salinity, basic temperature, not all the elements, water changes, your corals could thrive. It's just keep it simple and just do the bare minimum to run a good tank of the old school methods, and you could have really good, nice system. Everything else that we've been doing lately, all the bacteria, the trace elements, all this stuff is like just icing on the cake, but you could get out of whack with your elements very quickly. And then if you're doing 10 different things and you just added 3, you're not sure which one messed something up.
Yep.
So the more simple of a process that you have, the better it is, in my opinion. So maybe that might be a combination of things that I've heard, but is the keep it simple, stupid method. Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense. All right, last question, Kelsi. Right. What did I not ask you that I should have asked you?
I probably would have went in the direction of what I just kind of said. If I had to give advice to someone else rather than advice that I heard, is just to echo what I just said, is these corals are way more hardy than we give them credit for, right? So after the hurricane came through, the first one, I had some coral growing on the back glass I took everything out of this aquarium and I put it in a tub. I had stuff growing. I had acros. I had favia growing on the back glass. I had multiple stony type corals growing on the back glass of this. When I moved everything out, my attention was focused in the tub of, okay, let me run that well, and I don't care what's going on in the aquarium. Lights were off, just one filtration pump was running. I had no flow, no heater was running, none of this stuff. So I'm running all this, no lights, all this. When I transferred back into the aquarium, including my SPS that was in here, everything didn't skip a beat. Nothing died. Everything just was good and alive. And I basically completely ignored it. So they could survive and do okay. Another thing that I would go sort of in the area of doing too much is a lot of people hear and see acros. Okay, you get these crazy neon colors, blast them with light, 500 par, 1,000 par, all these high par numbers. What you have to realize is this is a balancing act with nutrients. Nutrients and alkalinity and light. It's a three-way, levers that we're dealing with here. So just because they're running 500, 1,000 par, you have to have your alkalinity, you have to have your nutrients at these other areas. What I tell newbies is, yes, you hear all this stuff, but watch out with your light because you could kill an acro with too much light before you kill it with too little light. So don't try to blast it with light to give it the crazy colors until you have a good understanding of what's going on. If you acquire a new coral, let it settle in, unless it was under very high light, you could kill the acro with too much light before you could kill it with too little light.
Those are some
a major point.
Really good points and a really great question that I can add. I really do appreciate it. Look, Kelsi, I really appreciate you inviting us into your house, allowing us to see your tank, allowing us to get to know you a little bit and talk to you. I've really enjoyed the opportunity. Thank you very much for this.
Yeah, my pleasure for sure. Enjoy it.
Thanks.